Hey, we are the girls from the Unfreaking Believable podcast. I'm Betsy.
I'm author J.B. Kane, but you can call me Jen.
And I'm Jenny.
And twice a month, we will bring you guests, authors, actors, and everyday heroes who are going to share their moments with you that made a difference in their lives.
And it's all because of that one inciting incident. You can find us on Apple, Spotify, Amazon Music, and Audible. You can also follow us on Instagram or TikTok. And you can visit our website at www.ufbpodcast.com.
We believe that life is infinitely stranger than fiction, stranger than anything the mind can invent. You might even say, it's unfreaking believable.
This is just a disclaimer and sort of warning about this podcast. The Activity Continues podcast is in no way affiliated with the Dead Files, its production company, or any of its distributors. We are simply fans that love the show and love to talk about it and dissect it and, yes, make fun of it. But we do love it. And all of the opinions expressed herein are ours alone and have nothing to do with the Dead Files or any of its cast, crew, production, or distributors. And we swear. Enjoy. Ghosty fam, Amy here. Welcome to The Activity Continues, a podcast where three soul friends talk about all things paranormal. Ghosts, hauntings, psychics, movies and TV shows, especially The Dead Files, and other spooky and spooky adjacent things as well. We also like to interview people in the paranormal community, as well as past Dead Files clients and other interesting people. Sometimes we even tell your stories. We hope you enjoy the show.
Hello. Welcome, everybody. Thanks for joining us again. Today, we are continuing our spring break series covering the Dead File episodes, which took place in vacation locales. And this week was AP's choice. So she will be telling you a little bit more about it and why she chose it.
Hey, everyone. Yeah, we're covering Paradise Lost, which is season 6, episode 13, originally aired June 25th of 2016. And I chose it because it is the only episode in Hawaii. And I kind of remembered this episode before I rewatched it, and I'm glad I chose it. Just a really quick note that Hawaii is not even 65 years old yet in comparison of being a state in the United States. Its official statehood is August 21st of 1959. At least that's what I saw online. So if I got that wrong, Amy edited it here.
Okay.
And if you visit, the islands are created of lava deposits, which is really cool. That's why there's some volcanoes that are more active in areas than others that are shifted further away on the tectonic plates. And if you do visit, please make sure to respect the area, the history, people, and the culture. That is one thing that we hear a lot coming out from people who live in Hawaii is the disrespect that comes from those who visit on their spring breaks or other times.
Mm-hmm.
So, Amy, what are we warning people about today?
Well, today we are warning people about blatant racism,
Gross.
segregation, animal abuse, gun violence, Pearl Harbor, internment camps, and disrespect of the dead. So
a light one.
Yeah.
So light.
Fully loaded.
Easy breezy.
Yeah.
And if our talk leads to anything outside of those things, I won't know that right now. So please check the show notes, and I will be sure to put it in the show notes so that you can prepare yourself for anything that might have come up off the cuff from us today. And housekeeping is what we have next. Amy, AP, has something she would like to share about something that she did and thinks is a good idea for us all to do.
I recently, thank you, Amy, took a me day I took PTO from work and I gave myself permission to do absolutely nothing productive. It was hard because many of us screw up in that time frame of if you aren't working or doing something productive, you are lazy and potentially have a low work ethic. And
idle hands are the devil's tools.
so that it's definitely one of those things that is always on my mind. Even if I have a relaxing day, I'm like, oh, I gotta go like do some laundry so that I at least did something productive and feel okay. So last Friday of February, I took a day for myself. I booked myself a massage, took myself out for lunch, got some groceries for dinner, which I was planning on getting fresh baguette and good brie, and came home, did a little yoga because the massage therapist said you should probably make sure to stretch later so that you continue to feel this, and took a nap. I never take naps. You two know this. I don't take a nap. And it was the most freeing thing ever because I did my cleaning on Thursday so that I could feel less worried about it on Friday.
Nice. Well,
Good.
that's wonderful.
Yeah, that's a great idea.
So if you have PTO, it's there for you to use. Take it.
And don't work on your PTO.
I didn't even feel the pressure to check my email or my
Good.
Teams, and often, and I don't get that pressure from my team, to be honest. It's myself being like, I got time. I'll just check it on my phone. I didn't even feel like I had to do that on Friday. I felt like it was Saturday.
Good. Love that for you.
Yeah, that's great. All right. Well, shall we do the overview?
Sure.
Since this was AP's choice, she's going to do the overview, and she's going to kind of guide us through our conversation. If you listen to our last episode, you will hear it was a bit chaotic.
It was kind of all over the place.
We're going to try and really rein it in just a little. I'm not saying that we're not going to go off on 500 tangents. I'm just saying we're going to try to stick to some sort of order of how the show went so that we're not bouncing all over. So, Amy, take it away.
Well, thank you. Again, this is Paradise Lost. That was season 6, episode 13. And I don't know if it changed between all the different platforms, but watching on demand, it was 613. So we meet Jeff, who runs the Museum of Oahu Sugar Plantation. The name was not provided during the show, so I'm not sure exactly the true name of it, but they said it's the Oahu Sugar Plantation. He has been there leading for 9 years and believes the history of the area is incredibly important to maintain and share. But he's concerned that younger generations don't care. So he works with his buddy Noah to create a haunted attraction. We learned that it seems to be mostly during the month of October, or maybe it started in the month of October. But this seems to be the catalyst of the activity. We also hear from 2 other employees, Moira and Laura, who agree. We have people being touched, followed by a shadow man, hearing things, being drained of energy, and feeling anxious or nauseous. This ranges from guests to volunteers and employees. Amy sees a drunk, wasted man who appears as a shadow, inside and outside spirits that don't like each other, and there's a lot of turmoil between all the dead. There's a lot of energy here creating poltergeist activity, and Amy keeps hearing about a camp and how the dead despise each other and the living. Steve uncovers this property, while historic in many ways, is also a myriad of homicide, death, fear, and segregation. Steve speaks with 3 experts who share information of the history and living conditions on the sugar plantation, connections to Pearl Harbor and World War II, death and homicides on the plantation. In the reveal, we don't actually learn anything like out of left field and brand new like we see in so many, but we do see cracks in the foundation of the staff and volunteers who work together. Amy provides reasonable, doable, and achievable advice. Jeff says, to do nothing would only make it worse. Does he follow through with Amy's advice? Stay tuned as we discuss if the activity continues.
Hey, everyone. We want to welcome our new sponsor, Gobble. As you know, life can get pretty hectic. Between work, errands, and family time, who always has the energy to plan, shop for, and cook delicious meals every night? That's where Gobble comes in. It's a meal kit service that takes the stress and guesswork out of dinner.
I used to dread the what's for dinner question every night. Gobble has been a game changer. They deliver fresh, pre-portioned ingredients and easy-to-follow recipe cards right to your door.
Exactly. No more last-minute grocery runs or scrambling for inspiration. Plus, the recipes are incredibly diverse. From healthy options to comfort food classics, there's something for everyone.
And let's not forget that cooking together can be a fun family activity. Gobble's recipes are simple enough to involve everyone in the kitchen, even the little ones.
So if you're looking for a way to make delicious, stress-free meals that the whole family will love, head over to the link in the show notes or on our website to get your first 6 meals for $36.
Gobble.
Make dinner amazing.
Unleash the power of stories, anywhere, anytime, with Audible. Immerse yourself in gripping stories, insightful knowledge, and captivating characters, anytime, anywhere. Audible is your library on the go. With hundreds of thousands of titles across every genre, there's a world of reading waiting for your ears. Listen while you cook, clean, or commute. Free your eyes to conquer your day, all while feeding your mind. Start your 30-day free trial today and discover the joy of listening. Go to audibletrial.com/TAC. That stands for The Activity Continues. With your free 30-day trial, you get 1 credit, 2 credits if you're a Prime member, good for any premium selection titles you like, yours to keep. You get the Audible Plus catalog of podcasts, audiobooks, guided wellness, and Audible originals. Listen all you want, no credits needed. Again, that is audibletrial.com/TAC.
All right.
Well, let's dig in.
So we start off with, well, we have, as always, Amy opens and then they tell us that they jump backwards.
Mm-hmm.
But Amy's seeing that this is a large property and feels stressed right away, that the dead people are stressed. It feels that there's a tall glass enclosure with people inside. And we're told, do not let them out. They are my pets. We also hear her say the earth is alive as a human. More so, the earth has been asleep for 1,000 years and is waking up. So that takes us back to Steve meeting with Jeff, who has no idea that the earth is waking up after 1,000 years.
Nope.
And I'm pretty sure Steve says something about trouble in paradise.
Mm-hmm.
And we are at a sugar plantation, which is also a haunted attraction.
Well,
We learn.
Yeah, I was like, oh, Amy's not going to be
Yeah,
happy
I said
about
that.
this.
My first note is open to haunted attraction, dude, with 3
Yes.
periods after it.
we have Matt, who's, well, this property has more than a dozen
Mm-hmm.
buildings. And so taking all this stuff down. And Amy, I think you're like, yeah, you and a crew of 15.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm like, yeah, you all by yourself, Matt. Well,
Yep.
this was an older one. Maybe,
Maybe he did more of it.
maybe he did more of it. But
Yep. But then we find out that there are 22 buildings.
Yeah.
Because Steve asks, do you know how many buildings are on this property? Steve, it's his fucking
I think he probably knows.
I would, well, let's not assume because some people might not.
Yeah.
He's
Well,
been there almost a decade.
also, but I went to their website and the website says they have 25. But maybe
Maybe they-
he's talking about 22 of those little house buildings.
Mm-hmm.
And then then there's the big building, the main
Mhm.
building, then there's other outbuildings. So maybe that's what
Yeah.
they,
Well, and there's potential that they have put together new buildings for education or other
Sure.
stuff since this episode came out 8 years ago.
right.
So he
Sure.
said that people aren't interested in it, like Amy said. So he partnered with his friend Noah.
Mm-hmm.
And that's when everything started really kicking off, is when he started doing these haunted tours, they call them,
Mhm.
Mm-hmm.
which, like, we'll get to Noah, but I have thoughts on him.
Yes. I think we all have thoughts on him.
Oh, God.
Um,
And then, well, when I just want to note when Steve is talking to Jeff and he says, why did you do this? And he said, well, I want the younger people to get get interested about their history. I'm like, okay, history tour is fine.
Mm-hmm.
Haunted tour is a completely different
thing. Yeah.
there is a little bit of a difference between so I've gone out to different areas in like Door County, Wisconsin, and they have a haunted trolley tour. It starts at 7:00 at night in the
Mhm.
summertime. So it's still
So
sunny.
light.
It's still
Yeah.
light out. But what they do is they take you around to different areas where there's there's been a lot of shipwrecks in the area. So they talk about like, this is where a ship went down. Here are things people have seen. There's always a gray lady or a lady in white or whatever, but they don't tell you you're going to see or experience anything, but they do take you to the different areas. And that is a fun way to get history and maybe trick your mind a little bit, right? I don't get the feeling that's what these were.
No, the Noah strikes me as almost like a ZB type of a person where just he thinks he's the best, and he was only on screen for maybe 4 minutes total.
I'm surprised Steve even wanted him on screen at the
but he just was arrogant, and he wants to stir up the dead.
Well, and that's what was crazy to me is, so Jeff reports the incidents with volunteers, the staff, general public. They're getting the reputation of being a, quote, hotbed of paranormal activity. People see apparitions and spirits. They're running away screaming. And Jeff feels it's his fault for doing the haunted attraction.
And I said, yes, it is your fault.
So Steve says, if Amy says you have to shut it down, what will you do? And he says, I'm not sure we would survive that. So he's fully bought in that this is the only way, at least from what they're showing. He's fully bought in that this is the only way he can operate his
continually operate it.
Yeah.
Is to keep the income. So when Steve asked him if he'd had any experiences, he said he was in the kitchen. He had pots banged together. One thing that I thought that he talked about was really interesting was when he and his friend were walking, he looked down and saw 3 shadows instead of 2. And he knew it was 3 because obviously there's 3. So one is him, one was his friend, wearing a baseball cap. And so I thought that was that would have given me goosebumps if I had seen that.
Sure.
The interesting part with that, though, was he was like, I had to move to see which one was me.
Yeah.
I knew which one was my friend because he was wearing a baseball cap.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But on the scary part, too, is like that the third shadow was in between the two.
Yeah, that, oof.
And that was outside the Japanese house. So as we're talking through this episode, they talk about the Japanese house, I think mentioned Korean house or Puerto Rican house, Portuguese. So that has to do with the history of the plantation and also internment camp as part of this did become an internment camp during World War II, which we'll get into a little bit here. But if you're watching this episode and you're not quite catching on where those house names come from, that's where.
So Amy says there are 2 types of spirits here. There's people inside the buildings and people outside the building. So she refers to them multiple times. And she also said she's getting pushed. And I didn't know if she meant metaphysically or if she meant a spirit was actually pushing her, but it really didn't want her to be there. She said he's very solid. Living people would feel trapped, and he's in a tunnel kind of bouncing back and forth.
That was the drunk, wasted man.
Yeah, the drunk, wasted man.
The drunk, wasted man. He's bumbling around like a drunk person, bouncing off the walls of a tunnel. I got that it was a physical attack towards her because she also talks about feeling choked where the hand presses around her neck. And
I wasn't sure if that was the same time. That's kind of what I got. So that's why I was a little like, I didn't know if she meant pushed but yeah, she does talk about getting choked later. So
it's, it is possible that she meant push like mentally, you know, that's a thing that they call it, pushing.
Right.
But somebody can do that to somebody else's mind. It's possible she meant that. In my notes, I have the choking a little later down. So I don't think it was the exact same time that she's talking about.
Yeah, I had it later on
in
too.
The tunnel, but she was outside most of the time.
Yeah.
Right.
And it was really hard to see exactly where she was. Like I was trying to be like, oh, wait, that's the Portuguese house, which is red or whatever. And I might have that wrong. But
well, and we know that when they edit, they cut to fit where Steve has conversations going.
Yes.
Because if you see, so it may have been around the same time frame.
Yeah.
But was cut to be at different parts of the episode. But nonetheless, she's getting attacked in multiple ways.
Yeah.
And that hear about the choking because Laura, who is an actress during the haunted
tours.
yeah,
She's
the
an
haunted
actress.
tours. She's an actress. She experiences being exhausted, like being physically drained, dizzy, nauseous.
Laura,
She's had that, and then Steve
Laura
goes,
was
well, why do you
weak.
think that is? Why do you think it's paranormal? And she's like, well, I'm really healthy.
I know. I'm like, that's the only explanation is
Yeah.
That I literally wrote the only explanation is paranormal because I'm sorry, but like you're an actress. That's a very physical job. Of course you're going to be exhausted when you leave and drained and, nauseous and dizzy. Did you eat anything all day? I mean, I was annoyed by Laura. Like she just had, in my opinion, she just reminded me of that woman who's like, well, I got diabetes, so it's got to be ghosts.
Well, I mean, we've all had days where we've been physically drained of all energy, and it's not because there's a toddler running around. It's whatever reason you wake up and you're just like, I can't get out of this funk. So I've never associated that to being paranormal. However, you're also, if you put yourself into a situation where you're aware that there are things happening to other people, and is it a little bit of confirmation bias?
Yes,
possibly.
I think that's exactly what it was.
There were some things happening because there was also the bruises and the scratching. She went home from work and had that choking sensation. That's where we learn Amy has the choking sensation. Laura just said, I prayed really hard and it eventually went away. And she said the same thing in the reveal. So
oh God, with the reveal.
We're not going to skip to the reveal yet, though. I want to make sure we do talk about Noah, though, because in my notes, he was up before.
I hated him. And here's what oh my God, I hated him so much. And I was, not really against him until, and I'm sure we all are at the same point, when Steve said, what if Amy told you to shut it down? Noah said, I wouldn't care. We wouldn't listen to her. We'd still be doing it.
Yep.
Dude, you're a prick.
And then I actually took a picture of Steve's face when he said that, and that will be in the video version.
Good. He
was a prick.
He was a huge prick. Like fuck you. You started this. You caused this.
I do believe that the only reason that he's in this episode is to provide that catalyst for the rest of the episode.
Yeah.
Probably.
That is, I believe fully that is the only reason, because we still talk to a fourth person, and we've seen episodes where they only talk to two people.
Yeah.
Or they've talked to a bunch of others and they cut them out.
Yeah.
So, kind of the whole interview at the front half, that all intermixes to me of where
it does.
Things go. And then it gets into their investigation parts of it. But
yeah,
I loved Moira.
Yep.
Yeah.
She's a volunteer. And she gave a very much like of a mom.
I totally thought she was a mom. I thought
she had family that worked there.
Yeah.
On the sugar plantation.
Her grandmother and great grandmother worked on the plantation. So that's why she did it, was she had that tie to them. And she wanted to keep it going, which I get. Like Steve asks her and she said, yeah, it was bad. And I agree with her. Like, it's just like playing with a Ouija board.
Steve makes a comment later on, I think towards the reveal, just about the Hawaiian culture and the way that they respect, what's there. They respect it and speak with the spirits, the way that many of us want to, but feel like we're crazy if we do. I mean, I still have full on conversations now with both sets of grandparents and with Briggs and with other dogs, but it's mostly one-sided. But I think that is something that is incredibly amazing to watch, and to hear her have pride in her family that worked on this sugar plantation that did not have great history to the place.
Right.
And that's why the history is important to her, to share what is my culture, what is my heritage, and what do we want to avoid doing in the future.
Right. Yeah. So
and she gets to talk about the doll.
Oh God, when she talks about the doll,
questions about the doll.
My jaw went. I was like, holy shit. So she's talking about, unless somebody else wants to talk about it.
I just want to ask a question. You go ahead.
Okay. So they're in the museum. There's a doll case in the museum. They're standing by it. And it's this like maybe 2 foot tall glass museum, glass case, the way you would see a glass
Really
case
small
in a
museum.
museum. And in it, there's a doll, and it's like an older doll. Obviously, it's in the.
I think it's Japanese. It looks like a
Yes.
Japanese doll.
She said it was a Japanese doll. And
Okay.
so every day when they come in to check on the museum and make sure it's like ready to open, the doll is outside the glass case on the ground.
With the doors and windows locked.
Everything's locked. Like
Yep.
it's not like somebody and they said, they lock up every night, so it's not like somebody comes in. And then she said that somebody thought they saw the spirit of a little girl in the building, maybe 4 or 5, and they think that she's playing with the doll and she's the one that's pulling it out.
Noah talks about the little girl ghost as
Oh,
well.
yeah,
the
he's
little girl
Noah.
spirit, and that's that confirmation.
Yeah.
with the little girl there, which I mean,
And Steve said, "Well, that's kind of heartbreaking," and I'm like,
Yeah.
"It kind of is."
It is. But
She
here's
just
my
wants
question.
to play with a doll.
They're looking at the case, and he says
Mhm.
this case is enclosed, and it did look like it was a sealed case. There
Mhm.
didn't look like there was a door or you lift
Yeah.
up the top or anything like that. So how does the doll get out, and also how does it get back in?
Maybe it's one that you can just lift up,
Maybe.
or it could be just that it's a new case at this point in time.
or the door is on the back so visitors don't see it.
Maybe. But the way he said this case is
Mhm.
enclosed made me think he was trying to say it's not like you can just easily take something out and put it back in.
Yeah.
But I was trying to figure out how a spirit would be able to get a doll out of there,
That I
or
don't
how
know.
you'd be able to get it back in without
Mhm.
taking the case apart completely and putting it. Or maybe you can. Maybe you can take the whole case apart and put it back together each time. I don't know. That part was a little confusing to me,
Yeah.
but it was interesting.
I thought that was really sweet.
Did Amy touch on? I don't have anything about her touching on a little girl
No,
ghost
No,
or spirit.
I don't think
she did not talk
saw
about. If
a
she
little
did,
girl.
they cut it.
Yeah, because
Yeah, she
everything I
probably
have
did.
was about anger and hatred,
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
wanting everyone out of there, being neglected.
This is our land.
Yeah.
Get out. Yeah.
So I'm sure we'll tie those in as we walk through Steve's investigation and
Dig into the archives.
the
Was. Yeah.
3 people that he spoke with.
Yeah, he
The
did
first-
speak with a lot.
The
this
first
time.
one was Lopaka Kapanu. I horribly
Kapanui?
butchered that, I'm sure.
He's a historian.
Yep, he's a historian and said conditions were absolutely brutal. This was a plantation that was built in 1897 and ran until 1995.
Yeah.
Had about 10,000 acres and
Mhm.
spanned down to Pearl Harbor, which then later on, Steve's doing some research and he's like, I found that it shares the border with Pearl Harbor. I'm like, you were
Yeah,
fucking told that
The
already.
guy told you that.
But
Even I knew that, Steve.
I
but
know.
did
if there's-
he? But did they change it? And he did the research first.
Right.
Could
Who
be.
knows where
Yeah.
some of that is.
Mhm.
They
Anything's
did,
possible at this point with this
Yeah.
freaking show.
Yeah.
they said close to 1,000 people worked here, and I'm trying to
Mhm.
figure out, was that over the 100 years or was that at a time?
I would think it'd be over the
It'd be over
100 years.
time.
Yeah.
That'd be a lot of people.
Just-
I mean, it's a big space. It's a
That's
Like
the
you
only
said,
thing, is that it was
10,000 acres.
10,000 acres. So yeah, I just wasn't sure.
but a lot of those
Well,
But
acres
was it all
are,
being worked?
yeah, a lot of those acres are the actual sugar
Yeah.
field.
Mhm.
And then
I know.
So I don't know that that many people would be able to live there all at the same time in 22 to 25 houses.
Well,
But-
also though, they didn't care about the people, so they wouldn't
That's
care
true.
if they put 100 people in one house.
So, well, because they said they lived and died here, filthy conditions. They had
Yep.
corrugated tin roofs
Yep.
and dirt floors, which meant you were basically in a oven.
Oven.
Yeah. Ugh.
Luckily,
it's
they
Hawaii
don't live
after
in a
all.
hot area though,
and
because that would be really tough.
Well, yeah. it's
Sarcasm.
Hawaii.
Sarcasm.
Okay. I was going to say it's Hawaii.
yeah,
I know. Yeah.
and
It's very humid in Hawaii too. I've been there.
Lapaka said it would be lucky if a baby survived a year in these.
Yeah.
I know. That was so sad.
The local Hawaiians were decimated by sicknesses, This is where we get the several different cultures that are brought in:
Mhm.
Japanese, Chinese, Filipino, Puerto Rican, Portuguese, Korean,
Mhm.
separated by ethnicity, by the people who owned it.
Yep.
Can't
Because
have
they
the help
showed a
talking
map,
to
which
each
I have a
other.
picture
Yeah,
of.
you
Yep.
can't.
Can't have the help
It
talking
was
to each
so
other.
disturbing because they even talked about how they paid people different rates to ensure resentments. So,
Yeah.
like, they would pay, for example, the Chinese more than they would pay the Koreans to create that resentment because they didn't want the workers to band together and unionize because there were so many more of them than they were of the plantation
Oh,
owners.
yeah. Oh, yeah.
So it was just
Well, it's
awful.
easier to create chaos because money talks.
Yep.
And it doesn't matter that it was the people in charge that were doing
Mhm.
this. I mean, we see a lot of this with the fight for equal pay.
Yep.
And that was definitely, Amy definitely feels that
Yes.
tension throughout the episode, talking about, as Megan, you mentioned earlier, the inside and outside people. They
Mhm.
hate each other. The
Mhm.
outside people hate the other outside people.
Mhm.
There's
Sorry, I'm
so
doing it
much,
again.
there's so much hatred. And part of that is what's draining the energy of people, but it's also creating poltergeist-like activities. So those pots and pans that Jeff heard clashing weren't a toddler playing, but they were potentially poltergeist activity.
And it's really sad because I want to say dissonance, but I don't think that's right. But it's not segregation either. Anyway, the separation of the people continues even after death because Amy
was
talks about
segregation.
segregation.
Yeah, it was.
Because Amy
Mhm.
talks about how even in death people still hate each other.
Yes.
Mhm.
So it's like that's so sad.
And she said now they're all jumbled up together.
Mhm.
Yep.
And it's even worse now because they're all dead and jumbled up together.
Well, and
Yeah.
somebody is keeping them. And we never really find out who put this glass dome, which all I could picture is like a giant glass cloche that
Mhm.
you're revealing food underneath, that there's just people
Mhm.
inside of that glass dome.
And then Amy, when she further gets that, obviously she's getting from people that they were mistreated when they were alive. And it was like,
Yeah.
yeah.
They did not
Mhm.
have good clothing or shelter
Mm-mm.
and starving at some point.
Starving, neglect, abuse, screaming, yelling. Yep. Just
Great.
all sorts of things going on. Some of that relates to a specific likeliness as well.
Mhm.
So then Steve goes digging through the archives and he finds that there were at least 10 homicides on the plantation. But we only really talk about 2 in the
Right.
history.
We meet with Chris Gaylord, a retired homicide detective, and she provides us information on these 2 altercations. And one of them, we've got officers in a 1905 raiding an illegal gambling game on the plantation. So I'm sure there was no emotion behind any of this going on. They arrest 11 Chinese laborers, and the police and laborers get surrounded, are beat with sticks, and shots ring out.
Mhm.
One Chinese laborer. This is where I feel like somebody wanted this guy dead.
Yeah,
Because
with that many shots.
Only one person died out of that whole brutal beating of everything going on. Chong Ji Fat, who was shot 6 times and killed.
Yeah.
And there was no determination of who did it.
Yeah, nobody was
nobody
ever
was squealing.
charged.
Mhm.
And you think if I don't know. Yeah. But that was
It was either that or he was used as a human shield,
Mm. Yeah, that could be.
which easily could have happened too.
Yeah.
Mhm. And I think Amy talks about screaming, yelling, dirt in the face, can't breathe, nauseous, sticks piercing the body so much. And I don't know if that's connecting to this or one of the other later on. It was either that or he was used as a human shield,
Mm. Yeah, that could be.
which easily could have happened too.
Yeah.
Mhm. And I think Amy talks about screaming, yelling, dirt in the face, can't breathe, nauseous, sticks piercing the body so much. And I don't know if that's connecting to this or one of the other later on.
To me, when she said that, she was talking about the 2 people who were killed in the Pearl Harbor attacks because they were both killed with shrapnel.
That's
kinda what
why I
thought,
said
too.
stuff
Yeah.
that was coming later on. But the whole beating with sticks part, that's where I was like,
Yeah.
are they trying to stretch it into two areas or trying to make it into one spot?
It
Or
could have
is
been
it just
jumbled when
all
she saw
coming
it, too.
together that way?
Yeah.
Maybe.
Yep.
She does
And
say
then-
she hears people yelling numbers and stuff.
Yes. Lots
Yes.
of numbers.
That's, I think, the
gambling.
the gambling, the gaming.
Mhm.
And it reminded me of Mrs. Maisel when Joel had the lounge in
Yes.
Chinatown, and in the basement, all the Chinese people were gambling, and they were always some of them were playing mahjong, I noticed, but a lot of times they were just yelling at each other and yelling out numbers and stuff like that. So
Yep.
I'm wondering whatever game that is, if that's what they
Joel
were
was
playing.
so cute. Such an idiot, though.
I know.
And then we went to May of 1985.
Great year.
There was a cockfight going on, and there was a man killed. His name was Henry Cuba. He was drunk, and he started fighting with people running the cockfight, specifically a man named Jamie Fernandez. He's the one who ran the fight. So Jamie went back to his house, got his gun.
Those were two different people.
Yeah, Jamie was not. He was just a guy who came to watch it.
Yep.
Did I misunderstand?
Yep.
Oh,
So Henry got in a fight with the
Yeah.
guy who runs it, and then Jamie intervened.
Yeah.
And Henry
Oh.
maybe to try and be like, okay, get out of here, get out of here. And it was, now I've got you. And then Jamie left, and I'll let you continue.
Okay. I thought he ran the fight. So thank you for clearing that up. I didn't hear that. So Jamie went to his house, got his gun, came back and shot Henry 4 times in the chest. So really did not have any chance of making it. And to me, that was so deliberate. Like, he didn't just pull out his gun in the heat of the moment and shoot him. He left, went to his house, got his gun, came back and shot him.
Which leads you to believe that this is not the first altercation that these guys have had.
Right.
Or that this person has had. And connecting back to what Amy says about the drunk, wasted man, this has to be Henry.
Yeah.
Because then she said she sees a man yelling about the animals, and she said he does not understand that he's dead.
Yeah.
Correct.
I took that to be that he was in history when Henry was shot, that the altercation maybe started because it was a cockfight, chicken fight, and that he was upset about the animals being harmed.
I think that's why he started. That's what I got too.
Yeah.
I got that he was losing.
Oh.
But either side, it could be a flip of the
Maybe
coin
both.
on that. It could be that he had his own birds in there, and maybe it was I don't know.
Could be, but didn't Amy say he said he was upset, like kept saying over and over again, all the animals died?
Yep. And that's where I wasn't sure if that was all a connection there, or if it ties back to the other part we're going to talk about here shortly.
Oh, maybe. Yeah.
So there's a lot that goes into it, but I was getting more that he was partaking in the gambling situations and not just coming up there to.
Maybe I was just projecting. Amy and I were projecting.
I
mean, yeah. And just as an interesting fact is that roosters are often, you see them with those blinders on their eyes because they will kill each other. They're innate to do that in a lot of ways.
So
like
pheasants,
for the
ladies.
Well, like pheasants, they will do that if they're at a game farm or something, because they will peck each other's eyes out. They will try to kill each other, even if it's not fully mating season.
Nature's brutal. One thing I had that's not related to anything, but it's a different ad. When they say if you want to reach out to us, it's a different one than they normally have.
Oh, is it?
Yeah. I just thought it was interesting.
Huh,
Normally they have one where Amy's got lighter hair with purple on it and like a purpley shirt.
That's later on in this
Isn't
is
it
season
different
6.
every season? I feel like every season is a different one of those.
The last couple seasons weren't.
Oh, okay.
Oh, I thought it was the same one every season. So that's why this one I noticed it was different.
This one is because it was season 6. I think that
maybe we just haven't done a season 6 in a while, and
maybe
wasn't familiar.
But I think the last couple were all the same because she did have that blonde hair with the purple in it, and that was really prevalent. I think in like season 13.
Anyways.
Oh, and going back to we've now put Henry aside and moving on as Steve learns about the plantation's boundary of Pearl Harbor. I frankly love the history of Pearl Harbor and just like we've got the USS Arizona that has the souls, the trapped souls of those who did not make it off that ship when it went down. Obviously, Pearl Harbor happened December 6th of 1940 or December 7th, 1941. 2 people died on the plantation during the attack. Likely killed, they said they're not sure, but it's likely from friendly fire as they're shooting anti-aircraft weapons. So think of if you saw the classic 2001 adaptation of Pearl Harbor.
I did not see that.
With
Cuba
my
Gooding
boyfriend,
Jr.
Ben Affleck.
And
and
Josh
Josh
Hartnett.
Hartnett. But if you see Cuba Gooding Jr.'s character on that, he is a cook who goes up and gets on one of the 50 cal anti-aircraft guns. So think of that type of weaponry that you're shooting into the sky, it's got to go somewhere and it's coming back down.
Mm-hmm.
That's where they're saying the friendly fire happened, or that it was hitting things that caused shrapnel to come off.
Mm-hmm.
We learn about a 3-year-old girl that is hit with shrapnel and a 19-year-old man who is hit with shrapnel, and those 2 died.
Do you think that little girl could be the little girl playing with the doll?
I
just
100%.
just put that together.
I 100% think so.
They called her they said the spirit was Japanese, but she's Hawaiian. Daniel said
it was in the Japanese house.
Oh, maybe.
Yeah, it was a Japanese doll, but it
Yeah.
wasn't necessarily a Japanese. I don't think they mentioned what the little girl looked like. Although Noah saw a little girl too, and he said she
Noah.
had dark hair.
Mm-hmm.
But either nationality would have dark hair.
Yep. And then post Pearl Harbor,
Great.
we have the internment camps, which
Hmm.
history will try to tell you, well, they were doing it to protect Asian
they weren't.
Americans. And no, it was segregation. It was a way to separate people, even if they could prove that they weren't Japanese. However, we did not see the same thing happening with white Germans.
After the 322 Japanese Americans, then they started filling it up with Italian Americans and German Americans and Koreans. They called it Hell's Camp.
Yep.
Hell's
Hot,
Canyon.
dusty,
They
and
lived in-
uncomfortable.
It said lived in tents, had latrines, hot, dusty, and uncomfortable. And I wrote, sounds like me.
160 acres with barbed wire fencing. Yeah,
Yep.
that's to keep
8
them
guard towers.
safe, right?
Yeah.
Bullshit.
And it was called Hana Ul Uli. Hana Ul Uli.
So then we get to the sketch, and she said the only group that she really was concerned about was the angry group outside.
Mm-hmm.
So we get to the reveal, and it's Jeff, Laura, and Moira, and Steve called out Noah and said, bringing him to the reveal would have been a waste of time because he didn't care what Amy would have to say. And Amy is just kind of over there smirking. Like,
Mhm. I took a photo of her face too.
Yeah.
Because he says nothing you could say would convince him it's a bad thing. And she was like,
yeah. Yeah.
Okay.
She's probably like, thank you. I would have reached across the table and strangled him.
Probably good for everybody because Amy wouldn't take his shit.
I would have
Just
paid to see that though.
Quickly, there were 4 internment camps in the U.S. that did have German citizens, ethnic Germans, they called them. Some smaller numbers of Italian and Italian Americans. Mostly were for those that they could differentiate because they didn't look like those in charge.
Exactly. And
Yeah.
do we all know that George Takei was in
Mhm.
one of those when
Yes.
he was a kid?
I will say Karen and Georgia covered an internment camp story.
Oh, really?
It was earlier in 23. I listened to it while I was out for a run. It was a
You
book.
lost me at Out for a Run.
It was a
Don't understand those.
I don't
somebody wrote a
understand.
book afterwards. It was in California. He was a baseball player and was taken in,
Babe
and then
Ruth.
they managed to the whole town was upset that they were taking all the Asian Americans and putting them into these camps. And so he kind of stayed as an inside guy and was writing out to the local papers, and the papers
Oh,
were
nice.
publishing what was happening inside these internment camps.
Oh, that's cool.
Interesting. I'll have to
Mhm.
look for that book. If I find
Um,
it, I'll put it in the show notes.
I have a very unpopular opinion, and most people are going to hate me, but I hate reading about World War II because it's just so sad. Like, I hate it. I hate it so much. I read to get away, and we're getting right back to World War II. And I don't want to read about it. I don't want to to read about the things that people went through because it's sick.
Yeah.
And that's why I don't like reading it.
I don't usually read war things either, and I don't like watching movies that have to
No.
do with World War II. And my dad was fascinated with World War II, loved, like, was so interested in all
My
of it.
mom
and
likes
I
books
just
about it.
can't.
Like the tattooist of Auschwitz, she loved. And I'm like, no, like I've been to Auschwitz, I've been to Birkenau. I don't want to read about it. I don't want to
And-
read about it.
All the worst camps in Europe were put into Poland, so Germany could say, it's not us.
Mhm,
Look at what Poland's doing.
mhm.
That's why they put all the Auschwitz and Birkenau and everything, all the big hitters
Mhm.
Yeah. So
are
that's
not
probably
are not in Germany.
no, they were doing enough.
Yeah.
Well,
It's
they were
just-
still doing it, but
just
Well,
not-
yeah.
just not on home turf.
and a lot of times they had a lot of Hitler's higher ups were Jewish because threat of family.
Oh my God. I
All
just
right.
hate everything.
Yeah, I know.
All right. So we're in the reveal. Back to this.
Amy
Sorry,
talks about
derailed
the
us.
man in the tunnel. She said he
Mhm.
used to be there a lot. He's in his
Mhm.
30s or 40s. He died in the last 20 years, and he was drunk when he died.
Mhm.
She did say earlier that he doesn't know he's dead.
Yep.
I don't know if
Yeah, I
anyone else said
mentioned that.
Okay.
Yep, I did.
Okay,
Yep.
cool.
But good to say it because you never know what I say.
If I forgot it, maybe someone listening did. She said you might hear him banging into walls or see him as a dark shadow. And of course, that's what we
Yep.
think. That's what Jeff and his
Then
friends
Jeff
saw.
talks about his story.
I also put in here that 3 of them have good intentions, even if the perception doesn't come
Mhm.
across well, because they
Yes.
still are worried about maintaining the history of the
Yes.
area and having that be lost to time.
Yes. Yes. I will say, for as much as Laura annoys me, I do think that she has a good heart and she does want the history of it to be maintained and she wants it to be
Mhm.
honored and the dead honored.
Well, and she said she feels terrible about going back
Yes.
to work there as an actress at this haunted attraction.
Mm.
And so, yeah,
They did
Doesn't
get
want
a
to do
photo
that.
of Henry because they
Yeah.
started talking. And I
Well,
thought he was so handsome.
they showed
He's
a
very
picture of
cutie.
Henry. Okay, so whoever it was that told Steve the story about that, showed him a picture of this
Chris
family,
Gaylord.
and everybody's faces were blacked out except for Henry. And then in the reveal, Steve says, I wrote it down, so I have to write exactly what he said.
Read exactly what he said.
Read exactly what he said.
Yeah, in her notes.
I wrote it reading my notes. Oh, I managed to track down a photo from the family. And I'm like, you mean someone handed it to you and then your production team cropped Henry out of it?
Yes.
Yeah.
That's exactly what it
That's
means.
exactly what happened.
Yeah.
But yeah,
Mhm.
Amy confirms that was him.
Mm-hmm.
That's the guy she saw, the drunk guy.
Mm-hmm.
She talks about getting attacked on the porch and being choked. And
Mhm.
so if that actress was choked at home, Laura, and then I wrote in parentheses, rebuke Satan in the name of Jesus.
I'm like,
That's what she said. I shouldn't laugh. And then, but doesn't that mean he followed her home?
yes.
Mhm.
Yeah. Okay.
I mean, okay. Listen, you both know that I have strong faith. And I like this is tricky because I get where she's coming from, but like not everything is Satan. Laura?
Yeah.
Me? But like, I don't know, that just made me roll my eyes.
I feel
Why-
like
Why did
if
that
some,
make me?
if some bad demon is trying to choke you, they don't give a shit what you're yelling. I don't think it. They'll be like, "Screw you and your fake
God.
deity,"
Yeah.
you know.
Because they specifically don't believe in him.
And Amy has said before, like if it's whatever kind of spirit is bothering people, that's why you have to bring in a religious person from their religion, not
Right.
some
Which
other religion, because they're not
ties
going
in-
to.
Ties into what she says later
It
on.
does. And I really loved that when she said that. So
recommendations.
again, Laura, just one thing I have before we
Oh.
get to recommendations. Laura comes back with, I'm pretty exhausted when I leave here. Like, again, you have a physical job.
Mhm.
So I have a desk job, and there are some days when I talk to 9 people, when I have 10 meetings all day, I'm exhausted when I come home. Doesn't mean that you're fucking being attacked by ghosts. Okay, I'm done. I just had to get that in there. It was my last note.
So I see all of that. And at the end, before they get the advice, I have that Moira is very sad for
Yes.
those there.
She is.
And, we do hear Amy say the dead feed off the energy of the living. Jeff is shown as being stunned, where Laura looks completely freaked out. So, like, he's shocked. He's
He
in
doesn't
shock
seem
and
like
awe.
he knows all that history, like the
No.
cockfights and all that. He didn't. That was all news to him.
Which
I think.
is weird, being that he curates a museum for 9 years. Laura does look completely freaked out.
Yes.
So I do believe that something's happened for her, and it's probably heightened, kind of like, I will say, for a long time, I hated walking back to my deer stand at 5:30 in the morning because I saw green glowing eyes once. They were deer eyes, but I watched them from my headlamp, and I looked over and I see them blink one at a time. And then I hear it turn, and I booked it, like, that's booking it, and I'm booking it to myself. It freaks you the hell out because you're thinking that everything's around you. And I knew what was there. But if you're having these other things there, like, I'm giving her some grace.
Sure.
Is all I'm getting at.
Sure. I didn't dislike her.
No.
I kind of did.
And then Moira, again, sad, but also accepts and understands it. This is where Steve says, Hawaiians, you have a very different attitude towards the paranormal. You respect them and want to help them. And we get into our advice and what happens. And what everybody's been dying for.
Yes.
So first, Amy says, find various religious leaders to do funeral rites for those faiths and help them move on. This will get the majority of the activity to go. Then you'll need 3 to 4 mediums to do a walk and search for those who couldn't move on because they don't follow a particular faith or something else. She says the choker will prefer to move on, like the shadow man, the drunk guy. They're going to prefer to move on. If there are more incidents, you're going to need an exorcist.
And Laura's face when that was like,
yeah.
And she does tell them, tours, you can do them, but you need to tone it down to maybe only a couple of the locations being open, not all of it. Give them a place to go. And Steve goes, how's your boy Noah going to take it?
Yeah.
Jeff thinks they can work through it, and Laura doesn't believe it will happen with Noah.
Yep.
Oh, she's like shaking her head.
She's like, Noah's not going to like it.
No.
Jeff says it's been a real education. To do nothing would make it worse. And then we get Jeff resigned from his job and Noah continued the tours. The activity continues.
When I saw Jeff resign, I literally went,
yeah.
And I was watching on my phone because I procrastinated. And John goes, what? Like, I gasped so loudly that John was like, what happened?
That's what I wish we had more information. Was it like did something else happen in his life that he left? Because I didn't get the feeling that Noah like owned the plantation or the property. It's not like Noah ran him out unless all of the board decided they wanted to go Noah's route rather than Jeff's route.
Well, except that, okay, so I wrote, I would expect this Noah's behavior. I would expect that from a white man, but he's Hawaiian. So that was surprising. I did look into this a bit. They do not do haunted tours. They do history tours still, but they have not done a haunted tour, or at least they have not advertised one since 2016.
Good.
Okay.
So I looked them up, and it is called Hawaii's Plantation Village. They refer to with the unfortunate abbreviation HPV. I have their email address. They have a Facebook page, which is more active than their website. Their website's kind of janky.
Yeah, their website
so
looked
funny.
And there's no haunted stuff on either. But I did go to their website, found their old press releases, and I found a press release from 2016 that talks about a haunted plantation tour. But all the ones before that didn't, and all the ones after that didn't. So that tells me they weren't. And then they did close at some point and reopened on November 16th, 2020. They reopened to the public. So something must have happened, and that's maybe when Jeff left. Well, yeah, probably. Well, if they opened in November of 2020, that's, yeah. But yeah, I don't know when they closed, but they were missing a lot of newsletters in between. I think they were closed for a couple of years at least.
It was a really interesting episode with a lot of great historical connections. And one thing I wanted to call out, because I've gotten a lot of notifications of this in the last couple of weeks, the newest national park in the United States is a former internment camp in Colorado. And it
Oof.
was created to be a national park to provide the history and show. So our national parks are areas to be treasured, not be developed.
Mm-hmm.
And they do often provide education pieces throughout. So I did drop a note in my notes, Amy,
Okay.
of the link of the story.
I'll put it in the show notes.
It's in Colorado. So it is, again, something to help try and provide some history of what happened and not just try to sweep it under the rug.
Mm-hmm. Okay. All right. Well, that was a good one.
It was a doozy.
Yeah, it was.
Find my script. Okay. So next week, we are covering the one I chose. It is called Deadly Force, season 11, episode 13. I was going to switch it out and do a different one because the last one I picked was in Florida and this one's in Florida. But when I looked into it further, the client is a Reiki master. And so I wanted to keep it just because I wanted to know more about that. I thought that would be interesting. And I don't
Yes.
remember this episode. I don't remember anything else from it. It was from May 16th, 2021. And the Travel Channel blurb is Steve and Amy head down to the Florida Everglades to meet with a Reiki master who claims her family is being torn apart by violent paranormal attacks. She's worried if Steve and Amy can't help, someone's going to wind up hurt or even dead. No pressure, though.
Right.
No pressure.
No pressure.
Yeah, there-
Under pressure.
So much of the dramatics
I know.
with the
We
Well,
didn't
it's
have
always
anybody's
Steve.
marriage on the rocks
Not this time.
episode.
I barely was able to watch it without that. I'm like, well, where's the drama?
Where's the marriage? I don't.
Nobody's
like it without
marriage is
that.
failing.
I
Nobody's
mean,
gonna
come on. Laura
die.
had to have, if she had something follow her home, like there's got to be something.
I know.
Just kidding.
Yeah,
No, this was a good one.
it was good.
Yeah,
it was
it
good. It
was-
was fun to see all that, all the like the beautiful landscapes
Yes.
of Hawaii and all the palm
was-
trees and all of that.
It was also kind
And the
of,
volcanoes in the background.
Mhm.
as frustrating as it was kind of interesting to see how they treated Noah through this. And I
Yeah.
really, again, do believe the only reason he was even featured at all was to provide us, like, nobody else is this driving force
Antagonist.
of the haunted tours.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah. It seems like it's just him.
Mhm.
And it seems like Jeff, I don't want to use the word weak because that's not the right word, but I felt like he just wasn't invested, maybe. Like he didn't want to stand up to Noah. I don't know. But
Oh, yeah. And I think he felt like the haunted tours were
in keeping it afloat.
something to keep the place going, and he
And
wasn't even thrilled with it in the beginning.
And Amy said, like, you don't have to stop them, which she usually does.
Yeah.
She just said, you know, like Amy said, just have it at one or two locations so that
She's-
the dead have places to go.
Mhm.
She's usually been okay when people do things respectfully. It's when
Right.
they're
But Noah
not
didn't
doing-
strike me as being
Right.
respectful.
And Jeff to me seemed more like he just had blinders on, like when he was like,
Yes.
"Oh, this was an education. We're gonna fail if we get rid of this." Oh, have you been a business operator? Are you checking your books? Like, what else are you do? Like, maybe if you fix your website.
Yeah.
I can't imagine the website was better before.
It's probably still
pretty bad now.
It to me, it looks like a platform that I know another company that is used. It's a local business, and they just said it was too much to try and upkeep because it was something that was built in the early 2000s,
Mhm.
and they wanted to keep the URL where it should be like just abolish it.
No, you
Mhm.
know what? I
And
used to
rebuild.
design websites, and still I don't really do it anymore. I still know how. You can keep your URL and put a completely different website on. It literally takes 5 minutes.
Mm-hmm.
You do have to pay someone to do it, but
Yep.
Call him up and tell him that, Amy.
I know maybe I should get a job.
Yeah.
Anyway,
Anyway, well, thanks for listening,
Yeah.
everybody.
thanks everyone.
We'll see you
Thank
next
you.
time.
Bye.
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 Thank you for listening to the Activity Continues podcast. We really appreciate you giving us your ears for a bit. Please reach out if you have a spooky story you'd like us to share on the show. We can be reached at theactivitycontinues@gmail.com or through our website or any of our socials. Links are all in the description of the show. Please feel free to drop us a note and say hi. And join us next time when the activity continues. The Activity Continues is produced by me, Amy, at Collected Sounds Media and is part of the independent Collected Sounds podcast network. We are also proud members of the Boo Pod network of super cool podcasts.
Nailed it.